My name is Blanche Gantz. Professionally, it was Blanche Ray.
When you're down.
I started dancing and entertaining when I was like 9 years old. And I went all the way until I got married. I worked in nightclubs, private parties, theaters, and then vaudeville, of course, had died. But I had plenty of work. A single girl that was pretty and could dance, and I worked alone. I always had plenty of work.
What type of dancing did you do?
A tap. I was a good tap dancer. But they liked the routine I did on the top of a wooden top hat, 12 inches in diameter. Good for the booking agents to show the theaters or whoever was hiring. I just asked my mother. She had me on the stage already singing and dancing. Not that I knew what I was doing so much, but she had me on. They used to do vaudeville for $1 a show.
They would pay you $1 a show?
Yeah. And I finally asked my mother when I got older, I said, Mom, why did you put me on the stage when I was so young and really had no experience? She says, well, you were so cute. So I worked in the Yiddish theater. When I was 7, 8, and 9, I took parts, dramatic parts, kid parts, and I sang and I danced. And I did that until I got married, much too young, and married 1 year exactly, and I had my daughter, Joan. And then I stopped with the dancing because I had no time for that anymore. And I started to teach, and I kept teaching little kids, which I never thought I would ever do, for 37 years. And I worked in the schools in Detroit, West Bloomfield, Oak Park. I can't go on, but I worked in 5 schools, a different one every day. I miss teaching the little girls and some boys, but that's what I really do miss. They hug you and kiss you, and it's delightful.
Very good.
That's what I miss.
I'm Marge Gould, and I worked at Lacumba Junior High School here in Santa Barbara for 23 years as a teacher aide and as a school secretary.
Huh. And what type of things did you do?
Oh, all kind of. I was the administrative secretary, so I was at the desk in the main office and answered a lot of questions and did a lot of typing and answering the phone and all that kind of thing. And before that, my first career was I was secretary of the general manager at the Pasadena Playhouse in Pasadena.
Wow.
And I did that for 5 years, and that was a really fun job, interesting people. So I'm very lucky in my working career. I had very interesting jobs and worked with wonderful people.
And did you have any hobbies in your life that you'd like to share?
Oh, needlepoint. I'm a needlepointer, and that's my main hobby, and I needlepoint once a week with a group of friends. Be creative with a needle.
Okay, well thanks so much.
Thank you for asking.
Helen Noss.
Tell me what you did for a living.
Well, I did secretarial work. I also did supermarket a clerk in a department store, various things. I got into real estate for a while, and I worked for the government in Washington for 5 years, and the most interesting thing that happened that I got to go to a tea at the White House, and I shook hands with Eleanor Roosevelt, and that was a very nice occasion. And it was supposed to be in the rose garden, but it was raining, so we got to do it in the East Room, which was, you know, their big banquet room. And and I also shook hands with the members, the wives of the cabinet members. Also, they were there. It was just for women, and I didn't get to see the president because he probably wasn't invited.
Was he busy conducting the war at the time?
It wasn't quite the war then. It was close to it, though. But it was a very nice affair, and that's what I remember. I was there during the war, and
What was it like during the Depression and the war?
well, it was a very busy place, and it was hard to get housing. My husband was in the military, and he also he was on the President's Honor Guard, and so attending funerals and parades and things like that. They had a special honor guard that did that for the president, representing the president. So that's, and then I worked in, I'm from Chicago. I worked there for a while, secretarial work mostly.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And your name again is?
Helen Noss.
Okay.
My name is Ann Baird, and for a living I was pleasant, tried to get along with people, and as far as money was concerned, I got some from my family, and that money that I earned was from teaching.
Where did you teach?
It was Santa Maria.
Oh, okay.
Actually, Santa Maria. It was wonderful. It was a small school, and I loved it and enjoyed it.
Did you have any hobbies in your time?
No,
Okay.
no. I loved reading. That was probably my biggest hobby.
Huh. Any type of books in particular?
Mystery stories.
Okay. Well,
Historical stories.
okay. Well, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
I'm Bill Rowe, and I've always been a photographer of one sort and another, and made motion pictures for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. A long and varied career. I also taught school. I was taught photography at a junior college in Southern California for a while. And anyway, that pretty much sums it up, the photography.
Did you have any hobbies, or was that your hobby?
That's the hobby. That's still the hobby.
Okay.
That's exactly. I've kept it up, and I still do it, mostly traveling, and mostly in Europe when I get a chance. The best part was when the space age started. We developed and the satellite, the first satellite, and with Huntsville people, General Medeiros, flew it. One of the most interesting anecdotes I can tell about that was we were told specifically by the president we were not to develop a satellite or fly it. And Dr. Pickering, Dr. von Braun, Dr. Van Allen, and a few others conspired to do it anyhow. Well, after the Navy failed about 4 or 5 times in a row, we were finally given the word that we could go ahead. What they didn't know was we had already gone ahead. We were almost ready to fly. When the word was given, it was 80 days from the approval to when we actually flew the first satellite. But anyway, at one of the meetings prior to this, where all of these people, JPL engineers and scientists, were all in this room, and a problem had come up, which they knew about. They'd already appropriated money from everybody that could chip in a nickel on the program. And finally, somebody said, well, we're out. We don't have any more money, basically. I don't know the exact words. What do we do now? Where do we get the money? And von Braun stood up hit the table with his fist and he said, "They steal it." That was it. No more argument, no nothing. Everybody went to their little cubicles to find out where they could steal the money.
And
Anyhow, a lot of things like that happened.
which president was it, and why did he say
It was Eisenhower's,
and why did he not want it developed?
because he wanted it to be a civilian. The Navy project was only administered by the Navy. It was not a Navy project. They provided administration. And the people who built the satellites and the rockets, it was a multi-stage rocket. And what happened was every time they tried to fire it, one of the stages failed. I don't think it ever got off the ground. But anyway, we were falling behind in the space race, very badly at that time. And somebody, probably Nixon, because Nixon was very close to our people. Nixon was, once NASA was formed, the head government man on NASA is always the vice president. And Nixon kind of started that, although there was no NASA at that time. But anyway, that's what happened. We were given permission. And I don't know how much money they stole and what they did was they siphoned money off from existing projects. Mostly, well, 90% of them were Army. The Army, our contract with the government was with the U.S. Army at that time. And then in 1959, under a guy named T. Keith Lennon, they created NASA, and we became owned by NASA. The Jet Propulsion Laboratory has always been operated and administered by the California Institute of Technology.
What was von Braun like?
Gruff, very German. I never spoke to him, but I was in the room with him several times.
Was there any question?
He was friendly with the people he worked with. I heard that he was demanding, and I could see, very strong personality. He knew what he wanted, and he knew how to get it. And well, they were all that way. And the funny thing about it was, Dr. Pickering, who I knew very well, he and I were friends. His personality was not in strength. His was a very quiet strength. He got what he wanted just by pushing.
My name is Leslie Wilson, and I've been a secretary all my life. I like to tell people I was born with a steno pad in my hand. I started with bluebirds. I don't know, that was age 6. Bluebirds was the junior campfire girls, and I was secretary of my little troop. And I've earned my living at mostly with nonprofits and universities.
Tell me, what did you like and dislike about being a secretary?
It may sound funny, but I enjoy typing. And I developed a specialty in mathematical typing, and so I was kind of almost like a private secretary to some of the, well, I wound up in physics.
What is mathematical typing?
Where you put symbols in and equations. And I knew just enough math to know the patterns. So I could even catch a professor's slip of the pen if he had left out a little segment of an equation.
And did you have any hobbies in your life?
Oh, arts and crafts of all sorts.
Like what, for example?
Calligraphy, weaving, oil painting, I sewed. I sewed from the time I was a teenager.
Okay, well thank you very much.
My name is Jewel Menser, and I was a secretary.
For what type of people? What type of jobs?
In an automobile, my husband was an automobile, had a dealership, and in the dealership I was the secretary.
And what did you like or dislike about it?
Oh, it was fine. I liked everything about it. I got to talk to the people that came in to pick up their car and everything, and so it was nice.
Did anything unusual ever happen?
Well, the only usual thing that doesn't happen is some, the dimes, the silver dimes, they're hard to get. And someone came in one day and picked up the car and gave us a roll of those dimes. And I still have them.
Did they pay for the whole car with dimes or just part of it?
And just part of.
Uh-huh. And have you had any hobbies that you'd like to share in your life?
I used to bowl. And that's all.
What did you like about that?
Oh, getting with the people and the exercise that you get.
Okay.
From, throwing the ball and knocking the pins down, and then you have people that, friends that you talk to and so forth, and it was a really good, time.
My name is Cheryl Kassir, and I was an elementary school teacher in the Hope District for about 27 or 28 years, and I loved it dearly. It was a wonderful place, and I raised 3 children, and I also spent a lot of time in my later years working for mental health because I had a mentally ill son, and I've had a very full life.
And did you have any hobbies?
Oh yes, reading, cooking for parties. We entertained a lot with my husband's students and faculty, and we had a lot of wonderful social life. And I worked hard at it and loved it.
Is this your husband here?
Yes.
I wonder if we could get him as well to tell us a little bit about what you did. May I unclip this from you?
Yes.
Bob Kassir, and I have gone through several stages of activities. I started out in the field of athletics and was a coordinator of recreational programs for the youth in Santa Barbara. Also was a high school basketball coach for 4 years. And then I went into college teaching, first at Santa Barbara City College, where I was there for over 40 years, and also part-time at UCSB, also there during 4 decades. And I enjoyed both activities very much.
Can you think of any particular anecdotes of anything unusual that happened in any of those different careers?
Well, yes. One semester I had 2 of my sons that
the 3 of us
took the class, and
move back a little bit.
They got home and they said, Mom, you can't believe what Dad did today. And she thought it would really be bad. And she says, no, what? He lectured for the whole hour with his fly open.
That's funny. And did you have any hobbies?
Mainly sports. And I played high school and college basketball. And then after that, and I played a lot of volleyball too, in the first collegiate volleyball tournament in the United States. And then I turned to tennis in my adult life. Played for over 40 years of tennis.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
My name's Jane Reese. I'm married to Tom Wilson, but I never changed my name because I was working at the time for the Cancer Foundation. And at that point I was doing insurance billing. And in college I majored in biology. and so I knew all those words. And been married to Tom for, I think it's 15 years. And we have independent children. I have 2 sons and a daughter, and he has 2 daughters. And they're good friends, which is a lovely thing. They all live in the Bay Area. What else would you like to know?
Have you had any hobbies?
Oh, I love plants. I volunteered at the Botanic Garden for years and years and really loved it. And then they changed the name of everything. So, but I still love the plants. I love the plants here. I look at them all the time.
My name is Norma. I was raised in the Midwest, but my hobby is one I inherited from my mother, and that was saving postcards. In those days it was all the rage. So I have postcards of the presidents up to Obama. I have postcards of their families, where they were buried, all sorts of things like that. I cannot get a hold of any now. I don't see the outlets where they have them for sale. But I hope to get that thing in shape and better.
Oh, what jobs did you have?
I worked in the shipyards during World War II. I wasn't a Rosie the Riveter. I worked in the tool room, handing out tools to all these guys from different backgrounds. We had ministers that were there. We probably had prisoners. Anyway, the shipyard was in Portland, Oregon, and I don't know what else.
Well, are there any anecdotes you can tell me of anything unusual that happened in your life that you'd like to share?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I married a scuba diver. At the time, I didn't know he was a scuba diver because he wasn't. But he became very involved in diving, and even taught NAUI, which is, I forget what that stands for, but he even taught instructors how to do things, you know, because he really knew about the intricacies.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
I'm
Rita Shaw.
Rita.
Shaw.
Yeah, very good.
Yep.
What did you do for a living?
I was a television producer.
Wow, where?
First of all, in Nebraska, in Lincoln,
Okay.
with KOLN, a CBS station,
Yeah.
and then in Minneapolis with the PBS.
Ah, very good.
Yeah.
How long did you do that?
Oh, I don't know, 20 years, 18 years.
How did you end up in Santa Barbara?
Well, because my son called me one day and said, I have a scholarship offer at the University of Chicago and at UCSB in Santa Barbara. Which shall I take? And so being the mother that I should, I said, oh, I have no idea, Greg. But luckily he chose Santa Barbara. Yes, so I came here and I called my husband in Minneapolis and said, this is where we want to live. Which most people do, I'm sure.
Hobbies. Since you were in TV production and whatnot, do you have any hobbies?
Oh, reading, and I love languages, and I'm very interested in foreign countries because all my children are in foreign countries, most of them.
So you do travel still then?
No, I don't travel, but they travel.
Oh, and they tell you
Yes.
what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good.
My daughter is in Jordan and
very
calls
good.
me here. My grandchildren are in Syria and China, and yes.
Very, very good. You don't think you're going to travel anymore, though?
No, it's too expensive, and I don't want to stand in those long lines at the airport. Right. So they come once a year to see me. When I first started out in Lincoln, Nebraska, I was in something called the Junior League,
a group of women, and they said, we need someone to do an hour program on Sunday at noon, the dead hour. So a friend and I decided to do it. And one day the manager said, do you want a job here? You can have 5 minutes every morning. And I said, yeah. So then it extended until it was an hour. And then I did programs in the penitentiary, and it was lovely. And one day I knew that Sir Edmund Hillary was in Omaha, 45 miles away, and I called him, and he said, yeah, but I'm in Omaha. And I said, well, can I come and get you? And he said, all right. So we had 45 minutes, then an hour interview, and then 45 minutes back. It was wonderful.
My name is Jean Geyer. I live in Los Padres.
Ah. And what did you do for a living?
I was a registered dental hygienist. Early on, I graduated from UC San Francisco, which was a branch of Berkeley, with a degree in dental hygiene.
That's right. And you grew up in San Francisco?
I was born and raised in San Francisco, as were my parents.
And still would like to go back there.
I'm not inclined to go back anymore. It's not the city I knew.
Anyway, so where did you spend most of your working life?
Well, I worked part-time. I have 3 children, so when they were small, there were plenty of things to do. I was always involved in some public efforts. I served on 2 school boards during a unification. I served as a public member of the Veterinary Medical Board of California, and had lots of interesting times in both fields.
Oh, good. When did you come to Santa Barbara?
I came to Santa Barbara about 3.5 years ago because I have a daughter in Goleta, and I was left alone, and the adult children who live in other states said, you got to live near one of us, and I was not going to leave California.
No.
And she knew about Vista del Monte because she has a friend whose mother lives here. So here I am. It was a good move.
And do you have any hobbies that you still participate in?
No, I don't really.
Oh.
I am interested in still what's going on in government. I like to read. I have to do physical therapy every day, which I do in my apartment. And I don't have any trouble keeping busy.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Maria Simonis.
Okay.
And I live in Santa Barbara. Before I lived on Foothill Road. Now I'm living here in Isla Vista.
Okay, now what did you do for a living?
First job here in America was at Hillside House, spastic children, that I was a housekeeper there and looked after the children. And then later I was at La Cumbra School, worked there for 16 years and retired. And then later I just raised my 2 girls, 2 daughters, and now I have 4 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. I'm sorry, 5 ones just came in. That's about it, about my
Okay, now, what hobbies have you had? What have you done for hobbies?
For hobbies, I like to embroider. I did lots of, how you call those, crisscross, tapestry. Upholstered 6 chairs for myself. And sewing. I enjoyed sewing when my girls were growing. I always did everything for them.
Well,
didn't buy. Well, my family, what I do? My one daughter is teacher. The other daughter is housewoman.
Oh, okay.
She lives in Santa Ynez. And her husband is agricultural man, and very close to us here. That always comes and helps us in case we need to go to the doctor or any place else. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My name is Betty Marvin, and I moved to go to UCLA in 1945. I grew up in Washington State, went to UCLA, and after college I married and had 4 children. They were raised in Los Angeles. And then I traveled a great deal, and I went back to UCLA, where I had my BA and I got my BFA in painting. And then I went to Otis Art Institute and got 3 degrees there in painting and many things. And then I became a writer, and I've had 1 book published.
What's the name of it and what was it about?
Tales of a Hollywood Housewife, which I was.
Can you tell me, you wrote a book, Tales of a Hollywood Housewife?
Yeah.
How is it you were a Hollywood housewife, and can you tell us a tale or two?
Well, I was married to an actor, and that's how I became a Hollywood housewife.
So tell me, who were you married to?
I was married to Lee Marvin.
And
we had 4 children. We were married about 16 years. And that was that.
And the Hollywood scene, how would you describe it in a few sentences?
Oh, I don't know if it deserves a few sentences. It's a very heady experience. It's good and bad. And I guess when I was young, it was an exciting life. I don't remember it that way as much, but no, it was never boring. So the book is not really about Hollywood. It's about the ups and downs of our marriage and raising our children, and my divorce, and ending up having a very different kind of life than I'd had when I was married. And it opened a lot of doors for me. That's when I went back to college and really was serious about a career. So I traveled a great deal. And I took 1 year and went around the world by myself just to see what that was like, if I would survive or not. And then I was living in London, and I came to Los Angeles. I came to Santa Barbara because my friend invited me to share a rental here. And so I've been in Santa Barbara since 1994. And now I've aged and I'm here in Vista del Monte.
Well, my name is Renee Carey, and I started off in broadcasting because that's what my interest was. But once I was married, my husband traveled. My husband's job took him away all week long, so I had to find other things to do besides raising 3 children. We had 3 children. So I've been a volunteer all my life. And I lived in England for 36 years, in London. And the thing about volunteerism is, the way I feel about it is, I got to do things that I never would have been asked to do if they needed a professional. So I got to do amazing. I had amazing opportunities.
Can you give me some examples?
Well, mostly, I mean, one of my first examples is I joined the American Women's Club in London, which is a big club of American women living in London. And they were having trouble with their restaurant. And so they asked me if I'd be the restaurant chairman. Well, I'd never done anything like that in my life. But it turned out to be a wonderful experience. I took over the buying for the restaurant and the menus of the restaurant, and I took over the staff. And we had a very good restaurant for many years. And then I became the program chairman there. And that was also an amazing job because I was able to get really well-known people to come and speak to the American women who lived in London.
Who were some of the well-known people of the time?
That I got at the time? Well, let's see, who did I get? I know one of my favorite people was Alicia Markova. She was a very, very famous ballet dancer. I had Elaine Stritch.
Who was Elaine Stritch?
Elaine, how was one?
Who was that?
Elaine Stritch. Well, she just died recently, but she's a very famous, what do you call it, musical star, musical comedy star. But anyway, because the American Women's Club embodied a certain type of audience, we were able to get really famous people to come and talk to us. And that was, to me, a wonderful experience because I got to meet people that, you know, I never would have met in a job, type of job, you know, in a paying job. And also because the American colony in London was very important to certain aspects of the city life. Being on the board there and things like that, you know, we got to meet some very top-notch people. As an example, the ambassador was always a friend.
Were you in London during the war?
No.
Okay. And what
I was actually in France during the war.
What was that like?
Because I was brought up in Europe. So I was in France during the war, but not in England.
Were you in Nazi-occupied France?
No, we were always 5 steps ahead. We started off in Paris, and when they came to Paris, we went way down to the Pyrenees, and we waited there, you know, hoping that the French would win the war so we could go back to Paris because we were living in Paris at the time. And that didn't happen. So from there we took the long way to America. And I had never been to America. My mother was American, but I had never been to America.
Well, what lessons have you learned in life?
Well, I think I learned to appreciate people, and I learned a lot of aspects of life that I was exposed to. For instance, art. You know, when you live in London, you're surrounded by museums, and I got a new appreciation of art that way. And I learned leadership. I think that's probably I don't know if I'm good at it, but that's probably what I learned the most of.
Well, what did you do in broadcasting?
In broadcasting, I worked at NBC, and I was in the department called Continuity Acceptance, which was that we, at that time, any copy that went on the air had to be looked at and approved before it could go on the air. There were certain words you couldn't use, there were certain commercials you couldn't do.
What year was this?
This was, let's see if I can figure it out. It was from January 49 until June of '51.
Do you remember what words you were not supposed to use?
Well, the one example I can give you was that that Mrs. Roosevelt had offered to do a commercial for hearing aids, and we did not approve it. So in those days, you know, they were very strict about what went on the air. I mean, I listen to commercials now, and I can't believe, you know, what they're promoting on television, because we were never allowed to do that.
Well, thank you very much. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think mainly that I'm here and I'm still a volunteer.
Okay, how old are you now, may I ask?
I am 88.
Good for you. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've got a friend.